Good evening. So last week we discussed the importance of being able to identify insects, to know what they look like, and even better if one could know the names and each insect, what to expect, their color, their unique body shape, and other characteristics. And we started with one insect. We went with some pictures, which was the thrip. Today we're going to continue a little bit on the subject as well. We're going to cover some other insects, and we'll see how far we can get with that. So there was a term which we used last week, which was called scrub. I tried to put a picture which on the screen didn't show up, so I'm going to put it now again just to review that term, and then we're going to go into continue into the next areas of the class. I'm quickly going to share a screen. And okay, so scrub, quickly in short, is the first thing you want to look for is a specific shape, a defined shape, which, for example, last week we did the thrip. The thrip has more of a longer, narrower shape, which as it gets to the bottom becomes more pointy. The next thing which you want to look out for is color. And so far what we discussed, let's see the thrip. When it's in the beginning of its stages, right after being born from the egg, it's more of a light yellow, and then it gets a little bit more and more brown, and as it gets older, it's almost a dark brown with clear stripes on its back. By this time already, a person should have recognized generally what type of bug, if it's a thrip, if it's an aphid, which we'll discuss more details of that. Other things to look out for is unique characteristics like stripes. A thrip, for example, last week will have usually stripes. As they get older, you'll see them clearer. Patterns of color change. Sometimes the lower part of the body will be darker, the higher part of the body will be less darker. And the body parts, eyeballs was something which we pointed out, which may be sometimes easy to identify, and other appendages like legs and wings, antennas, arms, and so forth. So to keep that term in mind is important. And now we're going to close this. All right, so based on that, we can understand the importance of having patience and being focused when checking. Sometimes people will quickly lift a leaf up to the light or put it quickly down on light, and within a second or two, that's it, move on to the next one. But based on what we discussed last week and in the past, the size of the bugs and needing to identify these different factors, looking for those unique shapes and colors and characteristics, and these again are not big bugs or black bugs that are jumping out at you. One needs a lot of focus and patience to really go thoroughly through it, and therefore it's highly recommended, and it's very important when a person is doing the checking. It should not be the last thing done, quickly rushing through it. It should be done at a time when a person can focus and do it properly and thoroughly. If for whatever reason it was pushed off and a meal starting and you quickly need to get a salad together, a person may have to be honest with themselves and see if they will really have the time to properly inspect what needs to be inspected, and if not, it may be just a better choice to not serve it. As we discussed, the bugs are a severe issur, and many issur involved in each bug, and it's just not something we want to take lightly, and not doing it thoroughly and doing it quickly usually will make it that we will miss things. So it's extremely important to be focused and patient when doing it. It's actually an interesting discussion brought by Rabbi Epstein, the Aruch HaShulchan, and he brings how a question had come up if maybe if a woman sometimes may be very busy with other things around the house, is it better if the husband checks? And he actually brings from Rabbi Yonasan Eibschitz, a tremendous halachic authority and figure in Yiddishkeit, which brings, I know specifically it's been always the women throughout the generations that have done it, because the women are so much more careful with these types of things and are so much more attentive to details and we'll give it the right focus and the right attention. And the man, however, is not going to have as much focus and is just going to try to run to the next task he has to take care of. And he says specifically there's a thing about women doing it and them having the specific attention to detail and an extra level of care and Yerushalayim and sensitivity to these things. And therefore we have to really give it all the attention that's needed to properly look out for what we need to look out for and identify what we need to identify. At times, people don't try to just want to get a grasp. What does it mean, small? How small is it? So usually what I like to do is to give an example from dollar bills. Actually, when a person sees many dollar bills, you won't realize, but there's very fine print. And by most people, when they look at it, they don't see it. But by giving extra attention, they actually will pick it up. I'm going to show some pictures of the dollar bills and what I'm referring to. But when you'll notice that, you'll notice how there are things which your eye can see, but if you're not really giving your all full focus and looking at every point in a surface, you may miss something. And how small things can be, and how small things that your eye can actually see. There are people, just to make a disclaimer, there are people out there that their eyesight, for whatever reason, cannot see these smaller things. And for themselves, like we mentioned in previous classes, that's okay because Hashem only requires you to do it according to what your eye can see, and if for whatever reason a person's eyesight can't see it, it's fine for them. There's a question in halacha if they could be checking for others, if their spouse or their children or guests do have a better eyesight than them, could the person with not the best eyesight be doing, and that's something a person should ask thereof. But we'll share just a few examples of an idea just to you can wrap your head around how small details can be and how careful we need to be looking out in order to see it. So we have here, we'll start with a $20 bill. So a $20 bill here on the bottom, it could just look like a very simple small line, but really when you look carefully, this will say the United States of America, 20 USA, 20 USA, and you could try it yourself if you have a $20 bill. This will just give you an idea of how small things can be, but this is something that the average naked eye could pick up and could read when pointed out. The same thing, the same idea by a $10 bill on the side. It says that in the United States of America, $10. And the similar idea by a $5 bill on the right side of the bill. There is little teardrops, and in those teardrops it says $5. So that's just a concept, an idea just to show you how small things could be and how paying attention to detail could actually, how small detail can be. Based on that, a person needs to realize what the comfort zone in where and how to see such small things. It's actually straining on the eye at times, seeing very small fine print, and each person can see it a different way. Some people have to remove their glasses and bring it very close to their eyes. Some people need to specifically put on their glasses if it's reading glasses, and in order to see things smaller, some people need to move it a little bit further, a little closer. And each person's eye works differently, so they really need to find that spot and how is the best way they can see it. I was once trying to train a mashgiach, and he kept trying to see things and he couldn't. And we realized afterwards that because he had his contacts on, his contacts are for farsighted, and because of that, when he was getting too close, it was straining his eye. And actually, when he removed his contacts, he was able to see everything clearly. Now, the question is if someone has to start moving their contacts to check, because that's the only way they'll be able to see small things. That may be something that has to be done. The question for your mashpia, your rav, if you have to go to that extent. But a person needs to find what's the easiest way for them to be able to see very, very small things, and that's how they should approach when they're checking for these various different bugs. And once you find a comfortable spot and you're comfortable with it, you will find things easier. It will be easier for you to focus and know what to look for and actually identify it. From this, we'll move on now to a few more bugs that are commonly found. Today we'll be covering, the first one we'll be covering today is the aphid. And the aphid is, again, very small. Of course, we'll just show in the general picture. It's the one up here on the top left. It's primarily found on all green vegetables and strawberries as well. You can see a picture here with a dime and how small it could be compared to a dime. They are pretty small, and they are many times the exact color of the lettuce, either translucent or very light green or very light yellowish. And they can be identified, first of all, starting with using the scrub methods. Their shape is unique, very different than the Thrip last week. The shape gets a bit wider and rounder on the edges, on the sides, and as it gets to the back, and it points out a bit to the back, but again, on the sides, it does get more rounded. And as well, what's unique about them is their legs. They will not develop stripes, although they do have texture. It looks like stripes on their body, but they won't develop darker stripes as they get older. And we'll just go through some pictures again, just to identify it. Again, as you see, the body gets wider on the sides, and obviously in this case as well, the eyeball is something clearly identifiable. And here's just some colors, how they can come, different colors. But again, we see the body shape, how it gets wider, and then in the back again tapers and gets a bit pointier. And these are when they're smaller, not yet fully developed. But we can clearly see that unique shape and how the head gets smaller a bit. But it's definitely much wider and rounder. Although they're small, they're much wider and rounder than the Thrip discussed last week. Again, they can come in various colors, light yellowish, light brown, and light green. And that's for the aphid. And the aphid is unique that it actually has a way to wedge itself into the vegetable to the point that it's very hard for it to be removed. And the only way it could properly be removed is actually if there is soap, proper soap that's used and is soaked for enough time that the soap can get under where it wedged itself, as well as proper agitation and the washing under a stream of water. And usually if you see one aphid, there will be a lot of other ones. So it's harder to get off. And if you see one, usually there will be others as well. That's the aphid. The next one, which we'll cover, will be the mite. And mites, again, starting off with the general paper mites, is on the bottom left, which are usually found in greens, in garlic. People many times use fresh garlic and they don't realize there could be mites. It's very common for there to be mites found in fresh garlic. And on strawberries, this picture is very enlarged. Mites are actually the smallest bugs which are seen to the naked eye. And even within mites, some of them are not seen to the naked eye. Some of them are. But these are the smallest ones which are problematic. So they're even smaller than the aphids and the thrips. And their body is a bit less defined, but we can still, here's a picture of it compared to a penny. We can see its legs spreading out, but not always is their body so dark. And they're shaped more like, I would say maybe like an eye. But a good way to identify them as well is their legs sticking out. They look a bit like a spider, but they're not a spider. It's a mite. And this is an upside down mite. Again, their shape is a bit oval, but and just a few more pictures. Their colors will be at times they'll be red, at times they'll be yellowish, brownish, at times they'll be brownish and black. Here's one that's a little bit more reddish brown. And over here, they're smaller, but you can still see the type of shape they are. Here's one that's almost translucent, right here. Again, we could tell from the feet. And these, again, are very small, and one needs to be extra careful to when you're looking out for them to just try to find those different characteristics, again, the legs and the unique shape. Next on the list, we have the white fly, which in the beginning of its life, the white fly, before it turns into a fly, will look like this. It's almost an oval, It's got the eyes, which are ways to identify it. It's almost a translucent body, and it's usually found in greens like basil and kale, mint, rosemary, and thyme. And we'll show a few pictures of this one. Here it's almost translucent, but you can see it right here. The two eyes and the body shape are what's giving it away over here. Similarly here, you see two eyes and that body shape as well over here. This one's almost transparent, and we see the two eyes and the general body shape right there. Right here as well, two eyes and the general body shape. These ones are a bit more noticeable. They're on the leaf. And same here, we see the two eyes and the general, more like oval body shape. They don't really have legs. They don't really have wings at that point. And these are some ways to identify it. The next one, which we'll cover, is called a leaf miner. Leaf miner is basically, again on the general sheet, is primarily found in scallions and leeks, as well as celery at times. It's a type of bug which starts to dig itself through the leaf and eats through the leaf. And as it eats through the leaf, it leaves this type of tunnel, and ultimately it does leave the produce, but sometimes it doesn't leave it and it's still eating through it. So if you see it, it's just better to cut that part away and discard it, and not have to deal with it. Here are some other pictures of how it could look like. These are some scallions, and that again will be usually found in leeks, scallions, and sometimes in celery. And the next and last thing which we'll bring up is the book lice. Book lice are usually found in quinoa, at times found in brown rice. Quinoa and brown rice happen to be grains that even in the United States we need to check. White rice we don't have to check. Flour we don't have to check, but quinoa and brown rice are something we have to check. So this is the book lice. They're also very, very small, but this is how they look. They're a bit different than the thrip. They do have clear stripes. The difference in the thrip that they're more rounded at their edge. They're not as pointy, and their head is a bit more defined and sticks out of their body. And they have antennas as well, smaller antennas. And they're usually brownish or light brownish. And here are just some pictures of the book lice. And here's a video, somebody checking quinoa and actually seeing a book lice right there, walking around. So just again, just in case you didn't see it. And we'll get more details how to check things, but right here we see it walking around. That's a little book lice. So that's for the different types of bugs. I'm sure there's a way we can share these different documents and pictures so people can have them to keep home. The other one, which will be more common, is the vegetable fly, which you'll usually be able to see very clearly, and no need to have any specific education on that. And now that we have identified or gotten some general idea of how to identify that, we could know at least a little bit more shapes to look out for, colors to look out for, and try to recognize the bugs, try to remember their names and their unique profile and characteristics. And obviously the most important is to take our time and do it patiently with focus, because that's the only way to really properly find these bugs and check them. And we'll continue next week more about the actual procedures and washing and how to go about with that.